waiting on Zaheen to reset up the... Awesome, Kamran, you're ready to open up the competition.
Good afternoon or good evening, everybody, depending on where you are. I would like to welcome you all to the 7th of the Mist Games competition. My name is Kamran. I will be your moderator for the evening, and this will be the spoken word competition that will go on from 6 p.m. To 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So we would like to start by bringing in our first competitor, Raisa from Metro Early College High School.
Assalamualaikum, Raisa. Could you just turn on your camera? And make sure to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
All right, you are all set. We are ready whenever you are. Or I guess before we start, would you like the judges and us to have our cameras on so you can visualize an audience, or are you okay with our cameras being turned off?
It's up to you guys. Either way works for me.
Okay, then we will have everyone do it as they please, and then during the Q&A, we'll have the judges turn on their cameras as well.
Okay.
Right, so the floor is all yours.
Why me? Thinks the woman in her car. It's lying in a ditch, a car accident. She's wondering if her crying is coming from the physical pain or from the fact she thought she'd gotten so far. How do I get out of this is the only thing on her mind. Is there a plan for you? Why me? Whispers the young girl. She's hiding in the closet. As she hears the shooter's footsteps draw closer, she's trying not to hurl. Her eyes stare at the dark door, hoping it doesn't open. Do you believe in your God? Why us? Teenage boy in his room asks between cries. He's been fired from his job, the new management rude and unforgiving. His family needed the money from that job, and without it, he doesn't know how he'll get by. The boy looks around his room for answers to help his family. Will you trust him in the process? The process? What process? What plan? What good will believing do? The woman has to go to a hospital in another town, a city she never thought to visit beforehand. There she finds her dream job and a great place to settle down. There is a plan for you. The girl, she grows up to advocate for gun control. She never wants another kid to fear as she feared. She studied law and she dug herself out of the hole. Believe in your God. The boy goes back to school. He's trying to find another skill to work in, and he ends up discovering a well-paid job where he makes the rules. Trust in the process. All of these stories and all of these experiences, in the end, they're tied by one thing, by learning to trust in the process. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that awesome performance. We will now open the floor for the judges to ask any questions about the performance.
Alex, do you have anything to, I don't want to cut you off or, anyways, thank you, Raisa, for doing this. Really appreciate you, especially with the pandemic and everything. I really enjoyed the piece. I just have some questions. I know we've been provided with the artist, like a little bit of background of what went into writing this piece. I was curious to ask you a bit about the trust in the process refrain that keeps coming up. I was wondering about it, if you wanted to speak a little bit more to it.
Sure, yeah. So, as I mentioned in the artist statement, these stories are all based off of true stories that I asked like family and friends about like a time in their life when they had to trust in the process. So, yeah, it's like in a way telling their stories about how they trusted in the process and also showing that like they didn't get there by just trusting. They also had to work hard. Like she had to work hard to get into law school. He had to work hard to find another job and so on. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I kind of got kicked out of this room for a moment, but I have a question just about the sequence. I mean, I noticed how you started with me, and then you introduced other. You broadened that from me to us, then got into other people's perspectives. I mean, what was your like? What were you thinking there in starting with you as why me as the first question?
This was all of this is honestly based on the stories that it was told to me for. So like, when I started with why me for the first woman in the car crash, that was how she told it to me. Like her thoughts were like, "This is happening to me. What am I gonna do about it?" You know. And ending with why us, because the teenage boy wasn't really concerned about him. He was more concerned for his whole family. So that was it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I have no other questions. Wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Raisa.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you very much, judges, and thank you, Raisa, for your awesome performance. We will see you on Sunday, the 16th, at the award ceremony, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Awesome. So I'm just bringing in Salwa next. Kamran.
Awesome. Sounds good. As soon as she's in the room, we will start. All right. Assalamualaikum, Salwa. So you will be performing live. So if would you like us to turn on our cameras so you have an audience to perform to, or are you okay with us having them off?
You can have them off. I don't mind.
Okay, sounds good. So then we will have the judges turn them on during the Q&A session.
Okay.
All right. If you could turn on your camera, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'll start. Women are women. Status of human beings just like men. We're given the same intelligence as men. We were and are human just like man. What raises us above all other creation is that we were decreed an intellect. We were decreed the ability to carry on the human race, for without our embrace, there would be no humanity to carry on. Many of us live with the gardens of the heavens beneath our feet. It is we who have the status of no other. It is we who can carry the soul of another, bear the brunt of being a mother, all while carrying the keys to the gardens from under. As luxurious as it may seem, our beauty doesn't lie in the bottom of our makeup bags. Our lives are filled with constant affirmation of incompetence. We deal with double standards that ironically come from society and cultural traditions that claim to be more important. Notorious for our constant objectification, and if that's not all, aesthetic stratification, exploitation, and just another few to name off the list. Ask for ambition and looks. We're driven by other desires, which is somehow more important, constantly having to prove ourselves to the world that we could do what the generation before us couldn't. But we shall not speak up too loud, because if we do, we are called the feminists. So we are silenced, plagued, hiding ourselves beneath the makeup, clothes, and myriad facades. And I hate to be a complainer, but don't take my word. Take Elizabeth Warren's, who once said something along the lines of, when we ask for our rights, when we ask for respect for our rights, we are deemed as complainers. We carry centuries of the burden of society's maniacal sidelining, being an accessory to another's life as a daughter of life and a mother. We also carry identity, and that identity is what rises us to stand today. So not all of us carry the same role. We're not defined by that role. We must have something deeper than the societal labels of relationships, and have hopes of being able to overcome our challenges and struggles. We women are currently 51% of the population, yet we still find ourselves in constant adversity. It's not about equality practice. Women and men are just not the same or different, and that is okay. It's about embracing our humanity, embracing that I as a woman are no less human, have no less desires, have no less impact, some may say more, have no less importance and dignity, and yet while the doors of the ultimate gardens are on my floor, I'm denied, humiliated, shamed, and more. Yet I'm still here, we're still here, 51%, and I still face the injustice and the disrespect, and I do so with a smile. Silent no more, plagued no more, by the disgrace of one's apathy, by continuing the legacy is much greater in my decree, as it was destined by thee, the Almighty.
Hey, Assalamualaikum, Salwa. Thanks for performing. But I think midway through, large parts of it started getting staticky. So what we're just going to do is, if you're comfortable, we'll stream your video so that we can also, everyone can actually like watch your performance. Yeah. So if you just want to take a seat, and you could actually turn off your video for this portion.
We were given the same status of human being just like man. We were given the same intelligence as man. We were and are human just like man. And what raises us above
All right,
all
just
other
give me one
creation
moment,
is that
and
we were
I
decreed
will
an intellect.
actually
Decreed the ability
set up her video. Great. If you double click
We were given the same status of human being just like man. We were given the same intelligence as man. We were and are human just like man. And what raises us above all other creation is that we were decreed an intellect. We were decreed the ability to carry on the human race, for without our embrace of the womb, there would be no humanity to carry on. Many of us live with the gardens of heaven beneath our feet. It is we who have the status of no other. It is we who carry the soul of another. Bear the brunt of being a mother, all while carrying the keys to the gardens from under. And as luxurious as it may seem, our beauty does not lie beneath the bottom of our makeup bags. Our lives are filled with constant affirmations of incompetence. We deal with double standards that ironically come from society and cultural traditions, that claim to be more informed but none the wiser. Notorious for our constant objectification, if that's not all, aesthetic stratification, exploitation, or just another few to name off the list. Harassed for our ambition and looks, driven by others' desires, which is somehow more important. But we shall speak up too loud, because if we do, we are called a feminist. So we are silenced, plagued into hiding ourselves beneath the makeup clothes and myriad facades. And I hate to be a complainer, but don't take my word. Take Elizabeth Warren, who once said something along the lines of, when we ask for our respect for our rights, we are deemed as complainers. We carry centuries of the burden of society's maniacal sidelining, being accessory to another's life as a daughter, wife, and a mother. But we also carry our own identity, and identity is what rises us to stand today. Though not all of us play the same role, we are not defined by that role. We must have something deeper than the societal labels of relationships and have hopes of being able to overcome our challenges and struggles. We women are currently 51% of the population, yet we still find ourselves in constant adversity. It's not about equality. Fact is, man and woman are just not the same, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's about embracing our humanity, embracing that I as a woman, no less human, have no less desires, have no less impact. Some may say more, no less importance and dignity, and yet while the doors of the ultimate gardens are at my floor, I'm denied, humiliated, shamed, and more. Yet I'm still here, we're still here, 51%, and I still face injustice and disrespect, and I do so with a smile. I'm silent no more, plagued no more by the disgrace of one's apathy. Continuing a legacy is much greater in my decree, as it was destined by thee, the Almighty. We women are women.
I'll go ahead first. I had two questions. One related to the choice of going with a free flowing like style of writing the poem and performing it as well. I was wondering if you wanted to speak a bit about the choice of going with that form over others.
I personally this one, what are you saying? So I guess it's just a personal preference.
Salwa, your internet is a bit choppy, and your audio is a bit choppy. I wonder if it's easier if we just close off your video just for now and see if if we're better able to hear your audio. And our moderator is also asking if you can move closer to your router if possible. Try it now, speaking. You just muted yourself.
Okay, can you hear?
No, it's still quite choppy. Give me a moment. Try again. Salwa, if you're not able to get your mic fixed, then if you can actually type out your responses and then we can just read them out loud, worst case scenario. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. Salwa, can you try again? Okay, so Salwa's just going to be typing out her questions. I guess for the ease of uh, these interviews, Alex and Fatima, if you could actually tell us any questions you have, and then I can get Salwa to record them and share with us on a later time, that might be easier. So please feel free to share any questions that you were having, you had for Salwa.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, do you want to go? And then I'll go after.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So the first question that I had was regarding the content. Again, choosing the forum. Sorry, not the content. Sorry, the forum. As choosing the free flow forum instead of others. And my other one was in terms of the choice of topic. I was interested to hear perhaps talk a little bit about the topic of women in Islam and women in general has been brought up numerous times. I was wondering if she could speak a little bit to why she chose this topic and what was something new that she was hoping to get across. Yeah, those are my questions.
Awesome. And Alex, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so thank you for the poem. I really like those rhythmic moments that you incorporated, and I love the metaphor of the garden throughout, and that really fit with that line about without the woman's embrace, there's no humanity. And I thought some of those images were great. My question though is about the beginning lines where you're comparing just like men, and that line is repeated a few times. And I wonder if I just want to hear you talk about why you chose to leave those lines in there when so much of the poem seemed to be kind of defining women, women's strength, just even without men in the picture. And I just wonder about the thought of leaving just like men in there, and if how you think that it helped the poem or advanced the beginning of the poem.
Awesome. So what I've just done is I've typed out the questions and shared them with Salwa. Um, So Salwa just said in terms of the topic, it was a personal preference. And she said, I think this topic of women is a very relevant topic in which I wanted to highlight. Awesome. So what we'll just do right now is actually for the sake of time and also for just keeping the production moving, I'll share Salwa's answers with the judges following this competition. And for now, we'll move on to the next competitor. Thank you so much, Salwa, for coming out today. Awesome. So we'll bring in the next competitor, Kamran. Just give me a moment.
As if I didn't pronounce that correctly. So the floor is yours whenever you're ready. And would you like us to have our cameras on, or do you prefer them off?
I don't mind.
Awesome. So we're ready whenever you are, Zoe.
Okay.
Oh, just give me
I'm
one
just gonna
moment.
start now. Okay.
We'll
we're
give her a
good.
quick
Let's
sec
just
for
back.
her
Yeah.
video to load, and as soon as she is on, the floor is all hers.
Great. We're ready to go now.
Okay, I think my video's on. Can I start?
Yep, you can start.
Okay. Standing in the face of adversity in our world, you have to be quiet to be a good girl. Makes me hurl. But good girls don't make history. I'll make sure you remember me. This is for the girls like me. We are one and the same. You are like me. But what do you think when you see someone like me? Do you want me to replay the hate I see every day? Always feeling I have to break away from the stereotypes, not good enough for the land of stars and stripes. So I fight for my voice to be heard in a place where no one wants me to say a word. I'm not the face of an oppressed Islamic nation. I'm at the face of an oppressed generation. People are so focused on screens, caffeine, jeans, that they ignore what it's like to be 16. In a world that hates you and berates you, instead of thoughts hurting you, did they know they had just motivated you to push through? All you see on a TV screen are fake Muslims abusing Islam for their terrorist regime. Women are outspoken if they ask for a raise, but it's okay for a man to make more than she did in a week and a day? And blacks are gunned down because of police brutality. Why is that reality? I'm not the face of an oppressed Islamic nation. I'm the face of an oppressed generation. People are so focused on screens, caffeine, jeans, like they ignore what it's like to be 16 in a world that hates you, embraces you, instead of their thoughts hurting you. Did they know they had just motivated you to push through? It eats away at me. There'll never be enough for my community. My identity is marked by serenity. Too American to be Muslim, too Muslim to be American. I was always beauty inside her. I aspire to have resilience that burns like fire and strength that could drown oceans. And when things are set into motion, they'll say it was because of her devotion. I'm not the face of an oppressed Islamic nation. I'm in the face of an oppressed generation. People are so focused on screen, caffeine's jeans, that they don't know what it's like to be 16 in a world that hates you and embrace you. Instead of their thoughts hurting you, did they know they had just motivated you to push through? I'm a supporter of what we put on our quarter. With faith, Almighty kicked out into outer space. His plan in life, adversity, I haven't got to say quiet becomes ease.
Thanks, Dowie. You did break up closer to the end, so we're just trying to figure out right now if it's better for us to stream your video, so that everyone can kind of watch the performance and we can judge it accordingly, without missing out on anything. So just give us a moment, and I think we will just stream your video. So if you want to just turn off your camera for that, that's totally fine.
Standing in the face of adversity in our world, you have to be quiet to be a good girl. It makes me hurl, but good girls don't make history. I'm gonna make sure you remember me. This is for the girls like me. We are one and the same. You are like me. But what do you think when you see someone like me? Do you want me to replay the hate I see every day? Always feeling I have to break away from the stereotypes, not good enough for the land of stars and stripes. So I fight for my voice to be heard in a place where no one wants me to say a word. I'm not the face of an oppressed Islamic nation. I'm the face of an oppressed generation. People are so focused on screens, caffeines, jeans, that they ignore what it's like to be 16. In a world that hates you and berates you, instead of their thoughts hurting you, did they know they had just motivated you to push through? All you see on a TV screen are fake Muslims abusing Islam for their terrorist regime. Women are outspoken if they ask for a raise, but it's okay for a man to make more than she did in a week and a day. And blacks are gunned down because of police brutality. Why is that reality? I'm not the face of an oppressed Islamic nation. I'm the face of an oppressed generation. People are so focused on screens, caffeine, jeans, that they ignore what it's like to be 16 in a world that hates you and berates you. Instead of their thoughts hurting you, that they know they had just motivated you to push through. It eats away at me that I'll never be enough for my community. To American to you Muslim to Muslim to you American, I would always be an outsider, not knowing what it's like to have a community inside her, but having to find a community inside her. I aspire to have resilience that burned like fire and strength that could drown oceans. And they will say it was because of her devotion. I'm not the face of an oppressed Islamic nation. I'm the face of an oppressed generation. People are so focused on screens, caffeine, jeans, that they ignore what it's like to be 16 in a world that hates you and berates you. Instead of their thoughts hurting you, did they know they had just motivated you to push through? I am a supporter of what we put on our quarter. In God we trust. I trust in God because I know I'm flawed. With faith, all my fears are erased and kicked into outer space. I know that His plan includes my whole lifespan. Inshallah, despite adversity, I will still attend university. I will rise so high and defy the odds and glorify God. I have a notion. God did not bless me with this much to say and just to stay quiet, because with every hardship comes ease.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zoe, for your live performance as well as your stream performance. I'll just open the floor up again for the judges.
Joey, so I'll go first. Thank you for your performance, your live performance, as well as the recorded performance. I really enjoyed it. I think your energy, despite our circumstances, whether that was the recording or you performing live, I really felt it and I appreciated it. In terms of the poem itself as well, the written lyrics as well as the performance, I really enjoyed it. In particular, the line, "I know his plan includes my whole lifespan." I found that very, very, that was very catchy, and I enjoyed that. I had a question about, I'm not a face of an oppressed Islamic nation. I'm the face of an oppressed generation. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about that. I know there's the chorus that is repeated over the poem, but I was wondering if you wanted to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay. What inspired that, like, those lyrics was a lot of people, especially in America, they think that Muslim women are oppressed because they wear the hijab, even though that's not true. So I just wanted to clarify that, and the line that said, "Oh, I'm facing an oppressed generation," because now in this time, I feel that a lot of people that, like, what they decide to, like, express and what they decide to, like, say, it's kind of like they don't a lot of people, they don't express, like, their true, like, emotions, or they don't they kind of go with, like, the flow, or what the majority of the people, like, say, or they go with majority believe. And I think that's really important to find that your own voice. That's what that line was addressing.
Thank you for that.
The way you just explained that about finding your own voice within, the way the poem built up to that line, for me, it built up at the line of the community inside of you, despite feeling like an outsider. And that was just a moving line. And it, like, the poem, you're addressing stereotypes and feeling on the outside. And that line right there was just so powerful and made me just kind of connect with you in that way. Because I think to some degree, like, everybody is, trying to belong and connect. And I just really appreciate that line, how it just went internal and was vulnerable. And I think if we all had that in the way the poem expressed it, we would all be more connected despite the, misconceptions we have about each other. That's not really a question. I really enjoyed the poem. I was just informed and moved by it. So I appreciate you, Daweed.
Thank you for your feedback.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Dawi, and thank you, judges. Dawi, we will see you at the award ceremony on Saturday, August 16th, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
All right. So this is a piece titled "Acting for the Greater Good." They said, "Worry about yourself and everything will be fine." They said, "Worry about yourself and everything will be fine." But while I'd like this to be the truth, at what point do we draw the line between how much others should suffer before our very eyes, before they consume us with inherent sociopathic lies? From the moment that we are born to the day that we die, we are always reminded to never give up, to always try. But while this principle is true and critical, oftentimes it leads to consequences that are hypocritical. Hear me out. We've got people always trying to act in self-interest, flaunting their cars, money, and success. This is not Pinterest. At what point do we stop and turn around? Help those in countries constantly death-bound. The Prophet subhanahu wa ta'ala always reminded us that we should. So I remind you, act for the greater good. Unfortunately, it may seem like these individuals are minorities, but we've got parties that make their political agendas their priorities. To the ignorant out there, I pose a question that is critical. Since when did wearing a face mask become political? If anything, it shows the flaw in our humanity, not willing to wear a piece of cloth to flatter their vanity. It's not one, it's not two, it's millions, pure insanity. Some religious, but going against their principles of Christianity. Been so consumed about trying to prove others wrong that we failed to help for so long. Under self-interest, a president trying to make America great again never could. So I remind you, act for the greater good. The current status of our nation is in pursuit of fame, fortune, and paparazzis. Did we forget about the Uyghur Muslims dying at the hands of Chinese reincarnated Nazis? The simple fact is that humanity comes before politics. But right now, the leadership of our country shows the opposite. If we're not willing to take action against acts of oppression, then who should? So I remind you, act for the greater good. From the prophets to the messengers to the word of the Quran, doing everything you can to help others is the righteous word of Islam. 1.8 billion Muslims being labeled as terrorists in the media, but what about the Ku Klux Klan? What about the Ku Klux Klan? Privileged Americans saying that they're being persecuted. What do you mean? There are brothers seeing their loved ones gunned down in front of their eyes in Palestine. What do you mean? What do you mean? Let's take a step back and understand the problem. The best step to resolution is to identify and solve them. Our current society lacks a moral barometer. We'd rather insult and jump to conclusions than be a kindful commenter. Rather than be furious and angry, be content with the adversity. The first step is to accept and acknowledge the diversity. In particular, solutions come in the form of countering acts of oppression, teaching all kids kindness of religion, color, creed, and adolescence. In essence, it's the change that humanity needs but questions. But let's just take a step back and understand that we ain't helpless. We can help. Believe me when I say that we could. All we have to do is act for the greater good. We're not all innocent, yet we're not all guilty. But man, if you don't feel remorse, your heart is just filthy. Stop ignoring the box in front of you labeled zakat. Go out your way and give to the homeless at least a snack. So when they tell me to worry about myself, I won't be fine. When I see people suffering before my very eyes, I won't resign. It's a sign. There are problems that are bigger than just yours or mine. The smallest acts of kindness hold the greatest magnitude. Just show empathy and no one will be mad at you. It's attitude. If you're thankful, then give back and show gratitude. Because like voting, the combined efforts of millions will show resolution. In our hearts, for our families, and against destitution. It's a revolution. But what's going to be your contribution? Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair for that awesome performance. We will now open up the floor for the judges to ask you questions.
All right, inshallah. Thank you.
Alaikum Muhammad. Thank you so much for your performance. Just want to say, as someone who just, as like an audience to that, I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And I think on a personal note, I think a lot of things that have been, I think, on my mind and mind of a lot of my friends, and I think people around the world, I think you did a great job at succinctly and in a very punchy way. I feel like you conveyed those messages, and again, like the language was very simple, but the messaging and the act for greater good, I think that was like it really resonated. I don't think I have a question for you at the moment.
Okay.
But I mean, I'll let Alex take it from here, and if anything comes to mind, I'll jump in.
All right, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Hey, Muhammad. I really appreciated your poem, and what I liked most about it is that it offered solutions. Like it wasn't just this poem that's.
Oh, I think you disconnected.
We'll just give him a minute and see if he pops back in. Otherwise, just give me a second.
Okay.
See what happens. Oh, there we go. Oh no.
Oh.
Alex, are you good now? Oh,
Oh, there
sorry.
we go.
I got kicked out. Well, I don't know where you stopped hearing me, but I was just saying the poem just offered solutions. And
Yeah.
I think you did that in creative ways. And the poem kind
Thank
of
you.
got to this moment where it felt almost like a poetic handbook for social justice. And
Thank you.
I liked the small examples of that too, like the line about at least a snack. Like just do
Yeah.
something
hmm
for somebody else. So I really like that your poem did get into some small, like concrete details and like tangible actions that people could take. So I really liked it. I liked the rhythm and I liked your delivery, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's all the questions that we have. Jazakallah khair, Muhammad, for your performance, and thank you for answering the questions. We will see you on Saturday, August 16th at the award ceremony, inshallah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the opportunity and taking your time out to judge. So have a good one, guys. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
So my spoken word poem is entitled Diagnosis. It first starts with an inkling of doubt, lingering in the back of everyone's mind, a few signs, call them symptoms, if you will, that make your heart quiver. You come up with a reason. You make a list of why this could be something other than the obvious. You make up scenarios to logic the illogical. You do everything you can to keep that hope in sight, because in your heart you're worried that you might lose it soon enough. And when everyone is tired of speculating, things are put into motion. Appointments are made, details are set, precautions taken, and they run the tests. Then comes the hardest part. Are you ready? You have to wait. You have to wait and keep yourself busy and breathe and eat food and drink water, and don't forget to breathe, because people are looking to you for strength. And God knows how little of that is left now. And then the diagnosis comes in. Diagnoses only make sense in hindsight. A diagnosis doesn't make sense when the house suddenly becomes quiet, when dinner is at a different time every day, when the house is surgically cut in half, when the bottom half becomes a war zone, when bullets continue to echo down the hall, when your own signs and symptoms are only byproducts of the wariness and fear boiling in your gut. And yes, you're scared and you're tired, but you try to find anything to delude yourself into thinking that you're in control, that you have everything under control, that before you know it, everyone will be okay. This will be a bad dream that you can tell your kids about one day if it doesn't hurt too much. But everyone knows there's only so much you can do to keep your head above water. And it's that feeling of powerlessness that's absolutely terrifying. That's when you realize that that's what humans are. Weak, powerless beings that don't even have control over their own selves, their own bodies, their own health. And it's precisely when you realize that powerlessness that you begin to better understand the wisdom of Allah, His power, and His mercy. No number of doctors, no amount of drugs will ever change the course of events that Allah has decreed and set. But here's the best part. You don't have to choose what to do next, so stop before you even start. The only thing you can do is submit to His will. Accept and know that this will pass, and that when the day comes at last, you will reap the rewards of your patience and trust. So if you're hurting, have tawakkul and make dua with sincerity. Understand that verily with hardship there is ease. May we all have enough trust to walk through the darkest night. May Allah give us the strength to continue to look for the light no matter how bleak the odds are. And remember that help is never as far away as we fear. And when it's all over and done, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Tasneem. We will now open up the floor for the judges for Q&A.
Hi, Tasneem.
Hi.
I really was moved throughout this poem, and first off, with the title, I do hope that health is improving. I hope that if this is coming from a real place, I hope everybody is getting better.
Thank you.
So I wanted to say that, but the poem, I felt that swing, the tense, the fear, it was kind of paranoid at moments, and then it rose up, and that the faith is what lifted the poem in the end. So I was really with that throughout the poem. And I wanted to ask a question about your choice to write the poem in second person. And what do you think that voice, the asking, like, are you ready? Like, that's when I really was like, oh, we're in second person. We're in a voice inside a head. So what were you going for there? And what do you think you captured by choosing that voice?
Right. So when I chose to do it in the second person, I really wanted it to be as applicable as possible. That's also why I didn't, name the illness or the disease or whatever, because I know that this can mean so many things for so many different people, and I wanted it to sort of transition into this sort of the comforting part, where we're all in this together. This is, I'm saying this from a place of pain and struggle, but I'm also saying this to comfort you, whoever you are, and whatever it is that you're struggling with. So that was the goal of that.
Thank you. I think it worked very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tasneem. I will echo Alex's comments. I really enjoyed the piece, and thank you for sharing something that's quite brave of you to begin with. I also really enjoyed the poem, and especially the part. And sorry, I'm just scrolling on my iPad. I have the words in front of me. The stanza where you talk about the diagnosis coming in, and then the way you describe, the house being cut in half, and the war zone and dinner being at different times. I really enjoyed that imagery. Enjoyed in the sense of as an audience member. I would also echo that. I hope everyone is healthy and well. I guess what I also wanted to add was, you know, that element of, because I think the way it came across to me is that you were able to, as you're mentioning, bring that comfort to the person who's listening, but it did not seem preachy. I was wondering like how, like, if what went behind the scenes of that, and whether that was like there was some deliberate choicing in that wording. I guess I don't know if that helps. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about the part where it's the resolution. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That part.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of just going back through how I dealt with it, and how it was not like a moment of realization. It was not like it was a shift of mindset, but it didn't happen, just like that. It was a process of accepting and having that trust. So that's why I was trying to have it a little more, bring it in a little slower than, here's what you need, this is what you got to do, and here's what's going to happen after it. So it was really just pulling from my experience of accepting and having that trust in Allah.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Jazakallah.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Tasneem. Thank you for taking the time out to perform and answer the questions. We will see you on Saturday, August 16th at the award ceremony, inshallah.
Awesome. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.
Chapter 1. Flip. I was 5 when I realized that there weren't any monsters under the bed. I was 5 when I realized that the only monster was the man who kissed me goodnight. Flip. When you're little, monsters were always a scare at night. They would be anywhere, hiding in plain sight. You would call for your dad, he would tell you there are no monsters, give a kiss goodnight, and don't let the bedbugs bite. Flip. But I knew early on that Dad was never Dad. Dad was scary when he got drunk. His clothes smelled as bad as a skunk, and he'd run around like some lost punk. Flip. There were nights where I just didn't sleep because of how deep Dad was drunk, where it would keep me from falling asleep. Flip. Chapter 2. I was 12 when I first got picked on. I was 12 when I threw my first punch. Flip. I swung my arm with a clenched fist right into his face, caused a black hole in his eyes, made Niagara Falls with red food coloring goes down his nose, and made him eat his teeth like our Jolly Ranchers. Flip. I looked at my fist and looked back at him and ran home to show Dad what I had done. He pasted it onto the fridge, and it was the first artwork that was ever put up. Flip. I remember looking down at my hands like it's a test to go all the correct answers to. I didn't know I took this class, but all I knew was that I was passing, and isn't that what masculinity has become? A class you took where your dad was the teacher, and the thing taught in that class was how to cause havoc on someone's face when it took a joke way too far. Flip. Chapter 3. Even on the days you would leave me feeling stone cold, I remember your love-filled warmth. The same way the sun shines on my face on a hot summer's day. Why can't you just stay? I know the sun only rises to set, but don't you remember the promise I made to you? Didn't I hold galaxies within my palms for you? Flip. I used my right hand to collect stars, while the left hand kept the others tight within my grasp. I decided I want to show the collection I built for you. Flip. So I joined my palms together so they could never escape, no matter the measure. But once everything started to slip, the galaxies that were held free were no longer within my grip. Flip, my hands left bruised. That night I asked my mom what's the difference between love and abuse. Flip, 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 flip. I lost count of the pages, and my mind was just racing, pacing, and I'm afraid of erasing the memories because they are deeply engraved within. How could you have told me you owned a constellation when you didn't even have a star to your name? Flip. Chapter 4. It has been what seems like a lifetime since we have last talked. Flip. The last time I saw the image of your face was the day I left when you uttered the words, man up. Flip. You see, you never really cared if I was ever okay or not because bad days were just quick responses of grow a pair. No matter how many neurons in my brain fired the words despair, you simply didn't care as long as I did not show my pain anywhere. Flip. Man up, son. You have no time to play around with feelings because men don't feel, because men need to work, because men are not little boys, men are men. You taught me how to wear the skin of a man, but also taught me how to raise that skin like a flag and draw blood from it. Flip. I have blood on my hands even though I have never harmed a soul. The lifeless room I abide in is filled with cobwebs and cratered holes, and I now recite the pills to keep me from ending it all. Flip. Long nights go longer as I take 2 pills of painkillers to try and muffle my heart's cry from the world. A moment of peace and tranquility as I vanish into an abyss of nothingness for a few moments. Something to keep me sane after all these years of constant abuse. A moment to forget all judgment that you bring as you breathe. Flip. As I stay in this trance a little while longer, I dream of you opening your mind to see the brick wall that stands between us. And one day, a single brick will fall to let light shine for the both of us.
All right, since the floor is all yours, judges.
Alex, I think you're on mute. Do you want to?
I'm still taking it in. So if you have comments, you can start.
Okay, cool. Assalamualaikum, Mohammed. First of all, thank you for the performance. I like that you're outside. It's a
Thanks. Yeah.
good time to be outside. Yeah, I think kind of what Alex is saying about taking it in. I likewise. That was very powerful. And thank you for sharing that piece. I think as someone who is who does think about mental health, and especially for the men in this world, the boys, I think this piece was really really touching, especially in the context of a Muslim interscholastic tournament. So thank you for that. I was curious about hearing your take on the idea of having a storybook almost, and the flip. I hear the flip as pages flipping, And I was wondering if you wanted to speak a bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it was in a storybook, like an actual book with the flip and the chapters and stuff. When I was writing it at first, at the beginning, I didn't incorporate it because, I was just writing like whatever came to my mind or like whatever I was experiencing at the time. But when I was preparing it for actual competition performance, the way the stories were going along, it was like different chapters within the book, and like how every chapter changes, and it's sometimes even different chapters are different. Like in some chapters are different books. So I added the chapters and like the flip and that whole context to make it like flow together better, because like I jumped through ages. Like at the beginning I was like in chapter 1 I was 5, and then chapter 2 I was 12, and then I kept on like growing in each chapter. So like it was like as each chapter goes on, not only do I grow in age, I also grow in like as a human, like as myself. So that was the whole purpose behind
Yeah.
the whole flip and chapters.
That was pretty cool. I mean, I think that the idea of using that as a transition, that was very helpful. It's almost like you're guiding us through that process. Yeah, thanks for that.
No problem.
And I guess the ending as well. I mean, that kind of just like I'm left kind of feeling gutted. I'm not gonna lie. Um, yeah, I mean, like, do you can you speak a bit about like the kind of like the decision making of choosing that kind of an ending, as well. I mean, I'm curious to hear like where do you see this this poem kind of going? I don't know. I mean, I'm curious.
Yeah, for sure. So with the ending, the reason why I like left it as it was, it's kind of relating to my story, like the way I grew up with my father, and like it's not like I know like the story it hits on alcoholism and like substance abuse and stuff like that, and that wasn't
Yeah.
the case with me. It just went along with the story, like the way that I wanted to portray it. But at the ending, it's like now like being the age that I am, and like me now understanding where my father's coming from, and like my father himself understanding where I'm coming from, and that whole like communication that grew, and like I'm not so like the person, like the character itself is not so sensitive to like topics like of bullying and stuff and like that, and like not having like the parental support that you see on like TV shows or like movies and stuff. So like
Yeah.
that's why like at the ending it left the longing for like a more connection between the father and the son with the brick and everything, and like how the brick
Hmm.
wall is like now starting to deteriorate, and like how we're now
Yeah.
starting to understand each other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, thanks for that. That while you were talking, another image that kind of like stays with me with this poem, the idea of like that artwork, the first artwork that's put up on on the fridge. Thank you. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, sure, thank you.
Hey, Mohammed. Thank you for writing this poem. I was really what was taking me a little while to to let sink in was just the flow. I mean, it did feel like multiple lifespans in the poem, which came through, and the flip added like an extra layer too of recall. Like when Fatima mentioned mental health, I immediately thought back like, oh, maybe this is somebody who's like having trouble processing through recall and reading that book over and over. And another thought I had, which I'm glad you explained it, or at least when you explained it, it provided clarity. Because I was wondering about the father figure in the poem too, and like at what point does the poem kind of get into his head and see what kind of generational, because with the topic of masculinity, toxic masculinity, some of these, I guess, generational differences. I was kind of wanting to, at least in a moment, get into the father's head, like what led to this behavior that the father had. And I think the way you were explaining it is at the end of the poem, I guess that's where I was even confused, maybe because I was expecting the father to, his internal thoughts to come in at some point. Maybe I thought the end was even like the roles were switched. Like the speaker became the father, or the speaker was trying to hide whatever feelings the father had that led to some of this behavior. I don't know if that's clear, but that was just something I had, like maybe just the way the poem sort of reverse roles there at the end. I don't know if that was something you were trying to do, like add that ambiguity at the ending.
Um Okay. With the way that I was trying to portray this specific poem, it was more like I understand like the point of view of the father, and like I even came to like the thought of actually adding the father's intentions and like where like his point of view. But then, I just felt like with the way that like I've experienced it, and like cause like the story like not the entire actual details, but like the plot and like the whole plot of the story, it was related to me and like my relationship with my father, and like it was just the reason why I wrote it like as it was just to let out like compress like repress anger and like repress like sadness and stuff that I felt towards my father, like how like why wasn't he understanding and stuff like that. So like I did think about adding like his point of view, but then I just feel like it would have been like it would have clashed with like it just would have been like a more of an argument instead of like a understanding.
Okay. Another part I thought it was beautiful, the innocence of the galaxies, holding the galaxies in the hand, and I thought that section was just beautiful. And then to return to that at the end, I thought it was a nice strong finish to the poem to return to that moment.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have from the judges. Muhammad, thank you very, very much for your time. We will see you on Saturday, August 15th for the award ceremony, inshallah.
Inshallah.
All right. So I just start whenever I'm ready.
Yep.
All right. Dear Mom, um, I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for not being the kind of kid you've always wanted. The soccer star, the prom king, straight A student. I'm sorry that I couldn't do it. I'm sorry that I didn't have the strength or the skill or the ability to even come close. Sorry. I'm sorry for being a freak, a loser, a weirdo, homo, a psycho, a creep. I'm sorry I wasn't better. I'm sorry I didn't come to you. I'm sorry you couldn't help me. I'm so sorry that I couldn't even help myself. And I'm just tired of all of it every second. So to my dear fellow classmates, I know I'm supposed to feel bad, apologetic for this. So you know what? I'm sorry you hate me. I'm sorry you made it your mission to make sure that I knew I would never be one of you. But you'll never, ever know how hard I tried. And I'm so sorry that I couldn't follow your unwritten rules, how to dress, how to talk, how to think. I want you to know your message was received. But wait, let me start that again. But before I do, let me explain. Those were the lines of a character named Aaron for who I was speaking in a group piece played about a tragedy of school shootings. and suicide. So let me start again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sorry. No, not right now. The question before me is how? How come that story is not mine? Why am I fine? Fine enough that I am not doing what, well, Aaron and the people Aaron represents have done. Well, first, alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah. Thank you, Allah. Everybody hearing this, myself saying this, are here because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one more time, alhamdulillah. But to be honest, I don't entirely know. Maybe it's because I have solace though. Surah Al-Inshirah, ayah 5 and 6. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Surely with every difficulty there is relief. And that fills me with belief because every time I read it, I see it said twice. So in my toolkit for hardship, it stays as some of my best advice. But why? Why must we struggle? Well, think, how else do you build muscle? Mental, physical, spiritual. Really, it's all part of the same hustle. You are not born strong. You're born like graphite. But don't worry, you'll be all right because you are graphite becoming diamond. Fun fact, the second largest component of human is carbon. Carbon makes graphite and diamonds, but you see nothing starts as a diamond. Graphite becomes it. But how though? With heat and pressure, that's extremely thorough. But it's a long process because on the path to becoming a diamond, many impurities are introduced. And to become one, those must be reduced till slowly gone. But my last fun fact, too much pressure in the graphite doesn't go on to become a diamond. It goes straight back to graphite. So what if we experience a whiff? Too much hardship. Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 268. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not place a burden greater than you can bear, and that is my rock. To know I will stand regardless of the wear and tear. So why? To qualify. So when our time comes, we enter the embrace of Allah as diamonds, certified. Jazakallah khair. So yeah.
All right, Jazakallah khair. So now we will open up the floor for the judges for Q&A.
Assalamu alaikum, Omar.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you for your piece. I mean, these candidates in general have been great so far. I really enjoyed your energy that you brought in. Again, with the pandemic going on, it's even though it's in this setting, the fact that you still were in it, like I really appreciated that because you came across and it kept the energy. I think what I have a question of is, like, what made you choose that as the beginning piece? I know in your spoken word explanation, you speak about, you know, the inspiration being, you know, struggles, your own and your experience. I was wondering about that piece in the beginning with Aaron and the school shooting, I believe. I was wondering if you could provide a little bit more clarity on that.
So that was a while back. That was like beginning of last year. It was for that was mostly a piece that I helped write for a group piece. So I mentioned that in my explanation, and so like we floated the idea of talking about school shootings, and part of it wasn't like actually like the stereotype that like Muslims are like violent, things like that. And so one of the first things, the second somebody floated the idea, I had people look at me in the room, and like that affected me because like, well, just having people like kind of like subconsciously think of you when they talk about like this act of violence happening at school, even though like statistically you're not likely, like statistically I'm not likely to be that anomaly, and really they are anomalies. But so part of it was like not being comfortable sharing my own struggles. And like I know a lot about spoken word is about sharing your own struggles, but part of it was seeing like, can I convey the same message without having to talk about my own, because you have a lot of that. And I was like, let me change it up. So that's what that was really about. And it was also giving a more extreme example, but a more extreme reality really in our world. And then, so what led to that is the fact that even though I don't know of any like Muslim school shooters, people my age who've made that decision, I do know that there are people who get so taken away with depression that they decide like that's their only path out, because when you get that depressed, what you can see, your perception narrows to that narrow, like that field. And the first time that I had to do this piece, I like really had to think about that. I had to try and emulate that, and just relating like all of my own struggles with that. Like how hard would it have to be? What would happen if my perception started narrowing till that was the only thing? And like it's really not that, it's not that hard. Okay, so and then that goes on to the next thing. Really, it's the fact that in the Muslim community right now, you don't really have like, I've had friends whose parents said, no, Muslims can't have depression. And it's like, when I heard that, that was also something that affected me, because it's like, well, we're still human. And of course we can have depression, but the problem is that there's this huge stigma around it that really hasn't been addressed in the Muslim community. And you don't really hear any like imams or like any lecturers talking about, any scholars talking about it, and like what the scripture is related to that level of hardship. That, and so that's really what this was about. It was about like taking that piece at the beginning, which could realistically become some Muslim kid to like soon enough, like you never know, and drawing that back to, well, where is like my solace from a religious standpoint? What do I stand on? And for a long time I didn't know that. Like just like going through personal struggles, like people would always say, oh, just look to Allah for help and guidance and stuff. But it's like, but how? I was never really taught that. And when I was researching that, like, so two of the ayahs that came to mind were Inshira and Baqarah, and actually missed the time that I made the connection between the fact that our second largest component is carbon, and we go from graphite, it goes from graphite to diamond, was actually last year at MIST. It was at Nationals, where Omar Sharif, I think, was giving a talk about it, and how he, like, a lot of his struggles, like becoming a doctor, and how like failed continuously, and that really related to me. And ever since then, like, I decided, hey, I want to do a spoken word that involves this, because I know for sure I didn't know this, and I've had like a pretty solid religious upbringing, essentially, but there are so many who haven't. And it's like, okay, let me like show my friends, because it's completely different when it's coming from your friends. Like, hey, like there is the religious basis for you to like struggle and find relief and things like that. And so yeah, I don't know.
Thank you, Omar. I really drawn out, but yeah. No, I appreciate it, and I hear you, and I see you, and thank you for bringing that, to the platform, to the stage with your piece. Both those ayahs, as well as your metaphor, like the struggle, hustle, and muscle. I have it actually written down because I really found it like a really nice play on words. And then going from the imagery of the diamond and the carbon and the graphite, like I really enjoyed that, and it stuck out to me. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Omar. I mean, you all both just touched on a lot of the good aspects of the poem, but I was just really struck by when you explained you were trying to establish empathy and having another character start the poem out. And I'm the way the structure is, where you're trying to show another person's, be in another person's shoes, another person's experience. And then in the middle of the poem, you're really going deep into yourself. And I think there's a powerful lesson in there that your poem is preaching about, empathy, and what we learn when we really think about what other people are going through, and then take that back to ourselves and what we're experiencing. So I thought that worked well. It was a little bit at first, the I'm sorry at the beginning. It took me a little bit to feel that transition from one character to another. I will say that. So I wonder if in that transition something could have been less abrupt. You kind of took us out of the poem for a moment and then explained what you were just like. I wish there was a way to let that be interpreted a little bit more so, as opposed to you as the poet having to explain it.
Yeah, so I mean, the intent was to have it be abrupt because it is such a serious topic, and part of me didn't want people to think, hey, is that the struggle that he went through? Like there was that unconscious element that it didn't want somebody to walk away with thinking it was me, because I don't know how to explain that aspect of it really, but I guess there is that level of discomfort really with leaving it up to interpretation. And I like, it was somewhat of a stylistic choice, but also somewhat of a stylistic choice to be like, hey, I'm going to like take you from this like heart-wrenching idea of this student who's either about to take his life or commit a school shooting. That's what the piece was originally about. And it's like disrupting that, and like how are you supposed to get past that? Because like a lot of people end up going through it, and it's like the silent majority essentially of and a big thing. So part of the reason why there was that stylistic choice is because there really is there's no gradual way to really snap out of that funk when your mind is like stuck in this idea of when your mind is stuck in this idea of like being depressed and things like that. So like one of those things is like sometimes it just takes one action. It just takes one person talking to you to be like to break you out of that, to widen your perception once more. And so it was like I tried to make it like a bang. So anyways, yeah.
No, I see that. That makes sense, and especially too when you then also switched your language. I mean, I see that. I see how that came across. I appreciate that explanation.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for your time. It was a pleasure performing this in front of you guys and anybody else that's watching right now. So Jazakallah khairan for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you very much, Omar. We will see you at the awards ceremony on Saturday, August 15th.
Thank you.
Ya Hussein, cries of Ya Hussein, the blood of Ya Hussein. Yesterday, Karbala, a desert. Today, Karbala, a garden. From thy sacred tears roses blossom, resting upon the graves of the 72 martyrs. What a miracle he is, Ya Allah! From death he gifted us life. It was remembrance that the soul hath breatheth, and from death the soul hath awaketh. What a beautiful sacrifice this is, Ya Isa. You yourself brought the dead to life, Ya Isa. As our eyes water, our souls fertilize. Surely you knew, ascending upon the cross. What is to be feared in death physically? You've died and lived reincarnated spiritually. The light of tawakkul, your soul arose, blossoms as a seed filled with light. Surrender it all, your pride, your ego, your fear. Solely tears shan't prostrate in pain. Bend thy knees as well. To the earth rest thy head. Drink the sweet nectar of dhikr. Clean thine eyes, tears pure. Allah is the giver, Al-Wahhab Ar-Rahim. You, my dear, Ya Muslimeen, must simply surrender. Ya Nabi, Salam Alayka. Ya Rasul, Salam Alayka. Ya Nabi, Salam Alayka. Ya Rasul, Salam Salawatullah alayka, Ya Nabi, Salam alayka. He took you from your home, He took you away from your love, yet come the night of Miraj, He took you away from this very earth. But how could you give up on faith, Ya Nabi? Let me submit to the miracle you are. Let me beseech to kiss your hand. Let my heart be slain from your speech. It is clear to me from faith comes tawakkul. In darkness, blinded we are. God's favor is missed by us. Open thine eyes and beseech the light. Let the soul see, let the soul understand. I will die awaiting, Ya Nabi. You tease me with such glorious words. Enlightened is my heart, awaiting the soul. How do I know the Lord calls upon me? My heart has fallen prey to the unseen. A fire sparked by the beloved, intoxicated by this inextinguishable truth, and He will play with your heart, the Lord, enticing the heart's fire to dance, longing to become closer to Him, forgetting all else but Qurbat o Qadr. You will perceive it as pain, as separation, when He removes all else from your path. Then with clear vision you will see your Rabb has been within you all along. Let go of your faith in Him if you want. Seriously. But you will notice if you think, how can He let go of you when in thine very heart He resides? Surely now it is rather fruitless to dismiss and instead fruitful to keep tawakkul. No challenge can be cleared in slumber. Rise, my brothers and sisters, to your destiny. او کی پشت پردای جنت است یا دست مرتضی یا شاعر شب سلطان دو جهان صورت قرآن یا علی یا علی یا علی. In prayer in Kufa your life was taken, yet in Salam your head you turned, facing your murder with grace, slaying negativity with your words. It's as if Ali is a living example, living proof of tawakkul. Even as he bled with poison, let go of his murderer, he did not. Before we rise, brothers and sisters, we must have our faith grounded. We will suffer, we will die. With martyrdom, we will be blessed. Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, Palestine, Kashmir, China, and Burma. God will test people and nations alike. Many will die, many will fall. Rise we must together, lock arms and minds together. Let us be binded with tawakkul in this cause for social justice. Today we will suffer. Today we will die. Yet from our blood shedded will blossom a future garden. Our children will pluck the roses, the scent of peace and freedom. Remember thy Lord and His favors. Then go, bind your heart with His. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your voice was just cutting a little, sorry.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for the piece. I really enjoyed it. I am personally a language enthusiast, and your switch to Farsi was very much enjoyed by myself. And I felt like there's. I think I'm curious about hearing what you say about this. I found that at the beginning there was a lot of quote unquote Shakespearean language almost with die and thine. But then as then there was imagery. We went to the Farsi. There was that praise of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then you brought it into the future. I was curious to hear your thoughts about the decision making in playing it out that way, and kind of the creative decisions that went behind it. Yeah.
So I knew for a fact whatever I was going to write, I wanted it to apply to our contemporary society, which but rather than revealing that in the beginning, I wanted to build up to that. So that's why when I talk about the Black Lives Matter movement and the treatment of Muslims around the world, that's why I leave that for the ending. But specifically how I built up to that. In the process of writing this, I was reading a lot of Allama Iqbal and his poems. And so his poems, the concepts in his poems were what inspired a lot of what I wrote. And then that's even the reason why I wrote that one passage in Farsi.
Thank you for that. And I guess I'm also curious to ask about the recording of it. I felt like, you know, the shawl around your neck. I guess I'm interested in that part as well. Like what went behind like choosing? Was it you know? Yeah.
So
you know, yeah.
it's a Sindhi shawl from southern Pakistan.
Yeah.
And it's called Ajrak. And basically, it's given as a gift to guests when they come to the mosque or like to the shrines and stuff, as just a symbol, like you're our honored guest. So it's very symbolic and meaningful.
Okay. No. Yeah, I had a feeling I wanted to ask though. Thank you.
Hey, Aman, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I enjoyed this poem, and I think your attempts to make it both make it contemporary. I think you achieved that. I think it's also it's relatable to maybe a broader variety of people. Like for me as a non-Muslim, I even the way you explained some of the biblical allusions, or the way that you tied them to some of your own creative phrases about, you know, the language about rising, and even if we're on the ground, you know, there or in prayer your life was taken, or you know, I get, for me, I guess I'm just trying to say, as a non-Muslim, the illusions that you had in the poem still, they do reach a bigger audience, and it shows there is a connection in trying to lift oppressed voices, and to, you know that we will be tested all as people, and we all can, you know, will rise through that. So I just wanted to point out how like some of the imagery was very grounding, and it landed for me. I just think I just appreciate your poem. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. Usually I was following along with the words, and I did lose some, but I just wanted to say the illusions did come through for me, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, Aman, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you taking the time out to present and to answer the questions. We will see you at the award ceremony on Saturday, August 15th.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Right.
Okay. The eyes of society, their hard gaze staring into the souls of each person, creating an endless cycle of torment, judging others based not on their successes but on the slightest hints of failure, leading their targets down a spiraling path of descent. These eyes of society are not what they may seem. Their criticism and discontent arises from within us, singing a hypnotizing melody to shame every dream that we have ever dreamt, every obstacle pushed into our path, every challenge we've ever faced creates an abyss towards which we gravitate. However, we must break through this loop. We must stand tall through our hardships. For if we try our best and trust in God, the rest is up to fate. The challenges to come will take place whether we panic or prepare for a better outcome. People are revolving around their misfortunes, not really solving what they continue to complain about. We stay on the edge of our seats, enraptured with suspense, listening to our president's pointless tweets. We spend our lives worrying about celebrities, hanging on to every word they say, but pushing our own problems away,
living a life of fabrication. Our outward beings expressed in desirable qualities, masking our inner turmoil, only meant to please the eyes of society. Sometimes it feels like you're drowning in an ocean, struggling to reach the surface as each obstacle wraps around your leg, making it seem impossible to fight against gravity's pull. Instead, drifting like an insignificant particle in the endless water of the sea. They're like pieces of binding rope, latching onto your insecurities, making each step forward feel like more than you can cope. But there is always a piece of hope that, when pulled, unwinds a series of hardships and calamities, allowing you to rush to the horizon, separating evil and good, giving you a gulp of fresh air. This strand of hope, this lifeline in times of despair, is the trust you have in your destiny, allowing you to try your best and to prepare for the unknown challenges that you know are there. We spend our lives focused on every past mistake, every regret we have, staying caught up in our misfortunes, drifting away in a chorus of pondering our very existence. What will I do with my life? We repeat like mindless robots. What is the point? Questioning our past lives instead of looking to the future, whose actions have not yet been written, giving everyone a chance to try harder, to get better, to... Why must we always feel the pressure to live our lives in the pursuit of an unknown goal, becoming anxious with every opportunity lost, every chance not taken, strangling ourselves with the very rope we control, with anxiety and regret, instead of learning to trust in the only thing that has ever been constant, the only thing that will ever be constant, Allah. Because now that we're in isolation, as our bonds between each other have dissolved, the only one we can trust in now is Allah. And yet, people are looking to their screens, creating a facade of perfection instead of achieving their dreams. They leave reality in times of adversity, not trusting the destiny written for them. This sought-after faultlessness only leads to the disappointment many of us face today. Our lives were never meant to be perfect, but it's better that way, so we can feel a sense of purpose and strive to improve ourselves. We can propel ourselves into the unknown, confident that whatever happens was always meant to be. We can take steps of our own towards the ocean of uncertainty amid the roaring waves, letting the current take us to our next journeys, our next futures, our destinies, unafraid of the challenges ahead that no longer have a pull on our lives. It's important to note that we cannot select our circumstances, yet we can choose an optimistic mindset to reach beyond our temporary setbacks and to improve our chances. Humanity's flaw lies not within what is always present, not in the blessings we already possess, but in the amplifying of the magnitude of all of the challenges we've ever faced. Adversity is only as obstructing to our goals as our mentality. Together, we must rise, and together, we must defy the eyes of society. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Mariam. We will now open up the floor for the judges for Q&A.
Okay.
Hey, Miriam, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I enjoyed this poem. I was captivated just from the first line, "The Eyes of Society." I just thought that was a gripping title. As the poem went through, and you felt the speaker being submerged, and you had some sort of like water language. I really like that. I mean, can you tell me about some of your process there when you were, creating that metaphor of like this water, this depth and like sinking and then rising again? Kind of what were you going for there?
That particular like piece, it was when I really like to write whenever I feel like just everything is bad in life. So that particular time I was really like just down. I just couldn't get through life. And so I just kind of like to describe how I was feeling, how I felt everything around me was. And so yeah, and also I I visited a beach earlier, and it really helped like to calm me down, and just made me like realize how everything was. So yeah.
Okay, so you brought some of that water language with you from the beach.
Yeah.
I like that. So what else? What would you say? What else is something that is? What is your piece of hope? What are your small pieces of hope that you hold on to?
I guess really it would be just the understanding that nothing will ever be perfect, because that's something that I really struggle with, is that I expect a lot of things to be perfect, and when they aren't, I kind of just feel like I'm not a success. I'm a huge failure. And so like really my biggest hope in life is probably just that understanding that things are never going to be perfect. You shouldn't judge your success based on others. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Well said. And I also like, though, even though you said don't judge your success based on others, I do like how you brought the end of the poem back to more of a, like even a communal experience. I think you were saying like we will rise, like that word we kind of came in. So I like how you captured that it does start internally and then it can, spread to the community from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Hi, Mariam.
Hi.
Just gonna echo what Alex was saying. I have to agree as well. I was also captivated by your words, especially the beginning of Eyes of Society. That really like drew me in. Yeah, I mean, it was like, and the other part, interesting that you mentioned the making peace with that. Perfection is not entirely possible. That part in the poem when you mentioned, life is not like things are not perfect, but that's how it's supposed to be, and striving and that allows you to strive, with a purpose. I really like that section of the piece. Thank you for sharing that. I was interested in kind of, in the beginning, you're talking about there's almost like this, I don't know how to explain it, but like there was like this commanding almost tone, and then the tone changed. I think around the time when you start talking about the water, that kind of imagery, and I was wondering if you could kind of speak a little bit to that process as well, about that change in tone.
Yeah. So the beginning was kind of focused on the societal pressures that we all face. So just like, what other people think might be success, go to school, go to college, get good grades, become a doctor, and I really wanted to show how like pressuring those societal like influences can be. And so like that's why, I was really kind of demanding in my tone at the beginning. And once I got to, the water part, drowning, I kind of wanted to bring up the internal emotions, what you really felt about it. And so that's kind of how I took my tone there.
Thank you for that, and I think that's really powerful. I think I mean, I felt like I was on that journey with you, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mariam, for your time. We really appreciate you taking the time out to perform and answer the questions. And we will see you at the award ceremony on Saturday, August 15th.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice weekend.
Likewise.
Can I start?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Stories. Sometimes I like to close my eyes and take myself far away. away from the world, back to that road trip to Maine. To August sun and fall whispers, I pack my bags with all my worries. We drive that long, never-ending road. So beautiful, so eerie. But the road was an abandoned, never-ending roller coaster, an otherworldly ride, a ride of indigenous cultural destruction, a trail of tears. A roller coaster built on the backs of stolen people, of fear, just hidden carefully. The beautiful road, an illusion, crafted to fit our American myth of equality. We carry the weight of America on our shoulders, while the elite live their dreams. America is the road that takes all reality. A road that tries to hide the cracks and rough edges and paint over any scars, not knowing the power of our rage. May 25th, 2020, 8 minutes, 46 seconds, cries of I can't breathe, unity created out of pain and gunshot wounds. This is not peace. This is not justice. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, repetition of their names, so they won't be a forgotten footnote of history. So the American myth doesn't get to paint over them. And so we took to the streets, mothers, fathers, grandparents, children. They're tired of asking, so now they demand for the system to take its knee off their neck, demand because they are fed up with burying bodies of loved ones, demand because Black lives only seem to matter once they're gone. We are done waiting for the privilege to fix glass that has been shattered. All lives cannot matter until Black lives matter. From the tear gas-filled streets of America to Beirut to Kashmir to Palestine, who are only remembered with black squares and violence. Silenced when voices begin to emerge saying the system needs to change. We're only heard when glass breaks or after an explosion. Do you expect us, trained to only be heard this way, to not riot, to not scream and demand? We are tired and fatigued. How can we keep going, saying it's progress when all the history books ignore and pacify, when Confederate flags still fly and so-called heroes upheld? We are done trusting the process of American justice, of seeking permission to be alive. It's been too long and too weary a fight, but we will go on, holding faith in one hand, trust of our truth in another, clinging onto the strength of each other to survive, because losing is not an option. After all the pain, all the gaslighting and shards thrown at us, we still somehow go on. Our hearts beating, trusting the process of activism, of love, to overwhelm the hate. Here's to our coming of age film. Our film of stories forgotten, our film filled with all the voices silenced. Our history to be remembered. You can try to drown us out, but we will scream. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that awesome performance. We will now open up the floor for the judges to ask you some questions regarding your piece.
Hi, Ashana.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Thank you for performing live, especially with the setup that we have, and everything going on. I think I really appreciated your energy and, your willingness to go for it. I personally really enjoyed the piece. I find that I was going along with you, and I'm just looking at your artist statement and the part, and it's interesting that you mentioned that you wanted to be like a movie, and that's how kind of I was riding along with you there. Starting off with the trip of like going into a car, filling up the trunk, and like going out for it, to the end where it almost felt like there was like a zoomed out panoramic vision, like like an image of these streets filled up, as we've seen recently with the protests across America and across the world, to be honest. So thank you for that. I feel like there was a lot of imagery there, and it was very powerful. In particular, I really liked the line where you could paint over them with the American dream, and the repetition of demand in towards the beginning and going to the middle. Like I really enjoyed that. And Black lives only matter once they're gone. I think that was also very profound. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about your choice in presenting this piece in the way that you did. Like you mentioned the movie, and I felt that too, and I was wondering why you decided to go with that. Was there more to it?
Actually, I had originally also signed up for short film. So in the of making that, I kind of decided that it would be better for me to focus on the spoken word. So I kind of sat down one day and just sat down at that chair and just listened to poetry that I really enjoy and songs that to me spoke about this issue and just how prevalent it is, because it's really often ignored in our communities, just because I think we like to think if it doesn't affect us, don't worry about it. You don't have to go and be an activist, just stay in your lane. And I think that a lot of the word choice and stuff, it comes from just I like sat down in one stretch and kind of like wrote down whatever I was thinking. And a lot of the imagery that we've been seeing over the past couple of months of protests and things, these aren't new phenomena. This is something that for some of us may seem new because we haven't been in that environment, we haven't experienced those lives. So we don't know what it feels like. And obviously, I'm Indian American. I don't know what it feels like to be Black in America, but it is part of my job to educate myself on other people's struggles, because who am I to expect someone else to learn about mine if I don't learn about yours? So the kind of choice of making it something of a movie was because I feel like a lot of movies, especially coming of age films, we've been watching and stuff, but we haven't had proper stories depicting larger groups of people in accurate ways. So, for example, with the Black community or in the Indian community, we don't have major figures who are more everyday people who are able to present our stories. So a lot of it was, this is my invitation to other people to be able to present their stories, because without that, no one's going to be ever aware of what goes on internally.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Ashiana, how are you?
Good.
I thought this was a very powerful poem, and the line that's standing out to me the most is unity created out of pain. Just that part. Unity created out of pain and gunshots, and that just really hit me. And it speaks to, though, the importance of everybody acknowledging that pain, no matter what our race is. Everybody, just as James Baldwin, he's one of my favorite authors, as he likes to say, bear witness to it. So, and I think your poem does that. You're bearing witness to injustice by, describing George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. Like you're bearing witness. And I think where your poem develops in the idea of like creating this new story that tells, that lifts up voices that are historically underrepresented. I really like the sequence of that. So I think you're hitting on some very important things, acknowledging pain and using that to unite us, even using pain to unite us, like knowing that there's something to learn from injustice. And I just think you're a very strong writer. There were some small moments too, even just with fun moments of language, forgotten footnote. Like there's just I could tell you're very intentional to small details in your writing, and I think I'm proud of the work you did because I think you're on to some important contributions to literature, to education, to history. So I appreciate your writing.
Thank you. About the unity, that specific line, I got inspired from multiple books, and I love history, so I like research about this stuff in my free time. So a lot of what we have with minority communities is, and I've discussed this with my friends before, and we came to the conclusion that the reason why we connect to each other and we stick together is because of discrimination and pain. So, especially for the Black community, their whole cultural identity was ripped apart from them, and they had to unify based on pain, which is something that a lot of other communities don't recognize, and don't recognize that this is why there's such unity there, because of the shared pressure and sort of assimilation that they've had to do.
I'm sorry. I hate that I missed your explanation. Would you mind saying that again?
Of course, so
Okay.
the unity, pain and gunshot wounds was written so that a lot of minority communities, they are unified on the basis of discrimination, on the basis of shared cultural values. But for the Black community, the shared cultural values were removed for a time period because their identities, they were never told their identities and had to create a new culture. So as a result, their unity originally stems from pain and from being threatened. So as a result, they were able to come out of that and create their own culture, which is often credited and not really seen as an achievement.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate you adding like the historical take on it as your explanation. But for me, I guess I even just as a light-skinned male, I mean, I took that as the importance of storytelling and being a witness to these injustices and making sure that gets shared, because then people feel, and I think that's a start. If I haven't ever experienced injustice, one of the ways that I guess I can begin to feel empathy is through being a witness, or through reading work that acts as witness and shares these experiences that I have no way of knowing in my skin, in my body. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ashana, thank you very much for your time. We will now just thank you very much. We will see you at the award ceremony on Saturday, August 15th.
Just like a lot of
God doesn't exist, so don't try to convince me he's real. It's kind of a doesn't exist, so don't try to convince me he's real. It's kind of a long story. There was a time when I used to pray 5 times a day. I mean, you know the drill. I felt the iman in my heart, but like, still, my soul had these gaps. Like, I just didn't have the will. See, I'm not much of a poet, more of an overthinker. I worry what can happen hour by hour, day by day, think about all the things I'm doing wrong in every single way. There's a way you must carry yourself, a mindset built in to be dictated by the blood that runs under your skin, and when you don't fit your cultural standards, it's a sin. I'm not much of a poet, more of an atlas. We carry the burden of expectations, success no guarantee. Parents always mentioning my cousin's perfect SAT. But nothing I do ever satisfies me. I'm not much of a poet, more of an observer, not wearing a face mask because we think there's no point to FaceTime. That's your good person who you just can't disappoint. Trying to find love at MSA events, worshipping underage TikTokers and visions bent, afraid of being the third one on a 2-person sidewalk, so we conform to avoid being an afterthought. Looking for places to fit in, right or wrong, absorbing the latest relatable songs, sneaking out our dresses for prom, using our white names in school to belong, never being content. Following their standards, lifelong. I'm not much of a poet, more of a therapist. I see demons sucking on my friend's life supply, my ear glued to the phone in the middle of the night to convince them not to die, and sometimes it's hard to explain the meaning of life when you don't even know why. Mental health is now a discussion that has passed through the lips. It's like we're letting the blood from the cut versus drip of the news on the net gain a stronger grip, just tearing into our lives like a bullet, rip by rip. I'm not much of a poet. I consist more of panic attacks than metaphors. So ironic. We were looking forward to the new decade, that it'd be a breeze. But I'm not saying this poem on a stage, but through a screen. Graduation wasn't what I wanted it to be. It's like day 215 of quarantine, and the number of deaths don't seem to recede. Palestine, Yemen, Uyghurs, Kashmir, Lebanon all bleed regardless of the disease. Floyd with a knee on his neck for 9 minutes begging, I can't breathe. The world is drowning in its own sins. No justice is seen. I can't look at the news talking about deaths analyzed. I've seen so much tragedy. I'm desensitized. I'm not much of a poet. I'm just empty. At night, afraid of sleep that never came, doing what I do, but I still felt the same. It feels like you're expired, about to decay. But when hardship pushes you to your knees, it's a perfect place to pray. To be content means to be in a state of happiness and satisfaction. You feel hopeless now. No, this time is just a fraction. It's hard to be content in the dunya, following like this messed up routine. But what is promised in the afterlife, we have to focus on the deen. Look, take out those AirPods and listen. Don't do anything for clout. It will be your demolition. Stop trying to impress others. It's not an audition. Following society standards, you'll always be at a disposition. I'm not much of a poet, more of a calendar. In Ramadan, I see all of us getting religious, reaching that all-time high, and then we burn the bridges. Let me tell you, I'm tired of feeling disconnected. Quran only used to collect dust in my cabinet. Don't deny those verses move your soul, even if your heart is absent. Quarantine at home, nothing to do for months on end. Let's use the time given to us well spent. External and internal life, we can heal and reflect. I get it. Post-COVID world, nothing seems to transgress. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We have to trust the process. You can ask why you're going through this, why you're so stressed, but remember, a teacher is always quiet during a test. At our lowest point, we all question God's existence, and we can't physically see His assistance. If every problem was solved just like that, we would all be satisfied, but we won't get the chance to see how we grow after the downside. Frustration is no excuse to dump faith on the curbside. I'm not much of a poet, more of a blank page. New stories of struggles and blessings written every day. Sometimes it will or won't be okay, but holding what matters most is the key to finally being content in times of adversity. And that's why it's so perfectly clear to see. He's real. So don't try to convince me God doesn't exist.
There's a lot to unpack with that one. Um, and I could like, I felt like I was sitting there with you through those conversations. And I found it to be really real as well. There's a part where you talked about you don't want to analyze the death count, and you reached the point of being desensitized. Um,
Yeah.
but I liked how it again those very real conversations, and you're keeping it very like straightforward. But then at the end, the way it kind of came to a point where as an audience member, I still felt hopeful. Um, but I was on that journey with you, and especially those parts of burning bridges and feeling disconnected after Ramadan. I can relate to that. I can understand that. We've been there. Um, and a change of tone. I guess I wanted to ask you about that. Um, Obviously, I was following along. I think there was like a lot of signposting, so it's helpful to understand what was going on. But I wanted to ask you, like, what was the deliberate choice, of changing your tone and you're making yourself sound a little bit more wary, or almost like zombie like when you were getting to those parts where you just like, I'm not a poet, blank page, that part. And I guess I was curious to hear more of the process behind the scenes.
So when I try to write the spoken word poem, I wanted to tell like a story, you know? It's about at first it's about frustration and it's about all the problems that have been going on and you're just losing faith in God and you feel like you're just following society's ethics instead of Islamic ethics and you just don't feel you feel like empty because Muslim youth especially today we're stuck in a limbo of faith and what is right and what's wrong and we're just so confused from time to time and I think at some point especially this year I mean come on it's like we see so much tragedy. We're just, I don't even know where to begin, right? And it's just feeling empty. It's just, I feel like that's the perfect way to explain it. It's sort of like a roller coaster. Like for my poem, it's like going like this conflict, and then you're just gone. And then soon enough, there's something that builds there, which is, when hardship comes, it's a perfect place to keep faith in God and keep going and understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God has a plan for you. He's the best of all planners. And we just keep on going no matter what. It's just sort of that process, if that makes sense.
So that's fair enough, and I feel like that really came through, especially the part of like I'm doing this not on a stage but over over a screen. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Hey Nadia, how are you?
I'm good. Just chilling.
Good. We are all forced to chill. We have no choice but to chill.
Exactly.
And I guess your poem is wrestling with that. It's like just that push and pull, I really thought you captured that voice well. This, with the irony of not much of a poet, within the poem. There was definitely like this frantic feel that came through very, very well. But I actually want to maybe ask about what would happen if the poem didn't necessarily resolve. Like, what if, for the sake of the poem being an experience, what if the poem just stayed in that frantic moment? Would that change the meaning for you? Do you think the reader or the listener and the reader would still, feel what you were saying without that resolve? Like, is there something to say about just having the poem stay only in that frantic tension?
Well, in my case, if that part happened and it just wasn't any like positive uplifting point, I would feel like it's the concept of persevering and being content and at times of adversity. And if we just kept that still, if I didn't switch the lines, God doesn't exist, so don't try to convince me he's real, and if I didn't switch the lines at the end, then the character or like me in the poem would still be lost and I would still feel empty and it just wouldn't feel right. You know what I mean? And I would still be following someone else's standards except for the standards that has been laid out to me, you know what I mean? and I would still feel lost. And I feel like that message could be sort of almost like a warning to others saying, hey, don't follow in the path of just going down this one road. Make sure you just keep on holding what matters most. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a cool aspect, but I don't know. When I was writing the poem, I was like, okay, I can't leave it at that point, you know? I just have to add more because I wasn't content with it.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, it was just a question because I was so that moment, you know, it just came across so. It was just so lively in that tense feeling. So I wonder if the reader, just something to think about, the reader could still sit with that on their own and be like, what's the mess? I mean, maybe there could be some subtle hints at getting out of that, but that's just something I was thinking about. I wanted to hear what you had to say about that, and it does make sense that you would want to write into that uplifting moment. So I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing your work.
It was my pleasure. Honestly, it's, you know, sharing the message of everything and especially what's going on today in this world. It's been an honor.
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm on here. Life is like a math problem. You've got to multiply, divide, add, and then subtract. Just a few word problems, no problem, just solve them. Not complex logarithms, but complex organisms. Not, wait, can I have 1 second? I have to go. I'll be right back. I wanted to dive in between it.
No worries. Floor is all yours.
Okay, so life is like a math problem. You've got to multiply, divide, add, and then subtract. Just a few word problems, no problem, just solve them. Not complex logarithms, but complex organisms. Not imaginary numbers, but unimaginable wonders. What was unlikely, easily produced by Allah the Almighty. He who made 1, 2 when he made Eve from the rib of Adam and then kept adding them till he made a whole race. He is the King of all, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, creator of the seen and the unseen. He gave Maryam alayhi salam a son without a father, and now we say she carried the Prophet. Oh, what a huge honor. But in her time she was stigmatized, belittled, and rejected by her people. They spewed false claims and called her names. But through it all, she stood 10 toes down because she knew Allah wouldn't abandon her. She knew He had a plan. She didn't waste a breath asking, why me? And when the time came to bring Isa alayhi salam into this world, she did so with only the comfort of a palm tree. No doctor, no help except the will of Allah. And even then, Allah told her to shake the tree so that the dates would fall. Cannot Allah, the most capable, most powerful, make the dates fall down upon command, or even sent an angel to wait upon her foot and hand? And although Maryam knew this to be true, she didn't question her Lord, simply did as she was told. She didn't waste a breath asking, why me? And now this great woman serves as an example. a lesson to teach us to trust Allah, but not to expect the blessings to fall. See, saying Allah got it won't get you very far. Yet Qarun serves as another example. This lesson to appreciate your blessings, because this ignorant king who thought he had it all, so much so that the key to his vault required 60 mules to haul. Yet when asked to whom he owed his fortunes to, he said, me, myself, and I, and by this statement he did die. And when his fortunes went down in flames, he was not able to uphold his claims that Allah's role in his life was not very large. See, at the end of the day, Allah is in charge. Don't fool yourself and go astray thinking you can get very far without the guidance and blessings of Allah. See, life is like a math problem. You need to balance it out through the process. And in order to make progress, you need to factor in the effort you exert without subtracting the will of Allah. Because simply saying Allah got it won't get you very far. I've heard this analogy over and over, how people say that just how every plane has a pilot, Allah has been leading this vessel of life. And they tell you just like how you trust the pilot through turbulence, trust Allah through struggle and strife. But I was thinking, they have it all wrong. The pilot does not have control over turbulence. He can lose control at any time. Allah is in charge of all. How could he possibly go through turbulence? I like to think of the analogy of life being a test, because just like how the teacher tailors the lesson to her class, Allah will never put you through something that you cannot surpass. Success is a process. Success is a process. You cannot sit back and expect not to lack the fortunes and the racks. You cannot sit back and expect not to lack simply because you said you trust Allah. No, that's not how it works. Not at all. You've got to trust the process, accept the wins and the losses, because without the L's, you really cannot win. If you've done your part, Allah got you. You will not lose. Tie your shoes, run this race called life, and I promise you will take first place. Say Bismillah, and you will always be safe. See, life is like a math problem, because the difference of effort minus submission to Allah equals 0. Yet dreams don't turn into realities if you don't factor in your part. See, life is like a math problem. You need to multiply, divide, add, and then subtract. Just a few word problems, no problem. You got it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. We will now open up the floor for the judges to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Walaikum assalam.
Alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. I'm good, alhamdulillah.
Thank you for performing for us live, given the circumstances and everything. Really appreciate that, and you're still putting in the energy to make sure it came across. I really enjoyed the math kind of analogies that were going on, and the fact that you kind of took us, on this journey with Maryam alayhi salam and Adam and Eve and the rib. Like, I think I really enjoyed those metaphors. I think I was wondering, how did you decide? I mean, because those stories are quite vast. So, like, I think I was curious to know, how did you decide, like, how you wanted to arrange them, and like how much of their experiences or what we know of their stories did you want to add, and how you want to, kind of organize it? If you could speak to that a bit, I was curious.
Okay, so first of all, my poetry, a lot of times when I do write, even though this poem is geared toward an Islamic crowd, I wanted other people who do not necessarily know everything there is to know about the religion to also be able to follow along, like the story of Adam and Eve, the story of Maryam, all are stories known to Christians and Jews, and they're very commonly known outside of the Muslim world. Also, I wanted my poetry kind of to educate, as well as not only to just tackle the theme of what is trust the process, but I also wanted to educate about Islam, because Islam is a very logical religion. So when I was picking these stories, I was trying to pick where exactly we could see that there was a person in the story who trusted the process of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Maryam alayhi salam is a big figure, because she trusted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. During her time, it was completely out of the norm that a woman could have a child without a husband. And so she was really she was rejected, she was belittled, like I said, yet she still decided to stay there and go on following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because she knew that he had a plan for her. And so that's her trusting the process. But at the same time, when you trust the process, that doesn't necessarily mean that you just kind of give up everything and you just say, oh, Allah has it, that's it, I don't need to do anything. You have to put in your own effort, and that's something we learn in the Quran. But sometimes people take that and they override it, so you have to kind of find the balance. Like with Qarun, he didn't have that balance of saying, oh, Allah gave me this and I was able to do this, alhamdulillah. He just said, oh, it's all me. And so I wanted to highlight that as well, how that is wrong, just like how like not trusting Allah is wrong, but also like you can't just throw yourself and say, oh, Allah's gonna accept, like save me. Like yeah, so I just wanted to kind of explore the idea of qadr and the role of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our lives.
No, no. I mean, I found it to be very beautifully done, and you know, kind of what you're explaining. That's what I was left with, and I really enjoyed that. It's almost like, you know, how in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does use these stories to kind of give us that hope, and I felt like your poetry was trying to mimic that style, and it was beautiful the way it was coming
Thank
through.
you.
So
Thank
thank
you very much. Thank you.
Hey, Alam, how are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Good. I when you mentioned audience and your intended audience, I mean, that's actually a question I was going to ask. Like, who is the audience? Because I did feel that you were able to capture different all different groups of people, from age to religion, just different worldviews. This poem could still speak to. So I think you did that effectively.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then your voice was energetic throughout, even, you know, like even the strange circumstance of our faces in squares on the screen. It's, you still, you know, performed the poem energetically and lively. So I really like that the math analogy, but I will say sometimes the analogy that you had started the poem with the math, you know, life is a math problem. Sometimes that analogy got lost when you had in too many other analogies. So, for instance, with the line about with the pilot imagery, that's just something I wanted to think about, because sometimes we lost some of that math language, and where you had it in there were some great moments, and I wanted just that to be the main focus, and not life is a race. You know, life is, you know, a plane ride. Life is test. I mean, all that one can be mathematical, but I really like that, and I think that could have even been brought through more in replace of some of the other analogies that were in there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, but overall, I think the poem is still effective, and maybe that's also a part of reaching broader audiences, is you do kind of give an image for everybody to relate to. You know, I think this poem could be read and interpreted by mature readers, and also it could be read by children, and that's not even in an offensive way. I just think the language, you did achieve, the language is easy to grasp and also thought-provoking at the same time. So I think you did find a good balance, though, in that.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your feedback.
You're welcome, Alon.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Ahlam. We will see you at the awards ceremony on Saturday, August 15th.
Okay, thank you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bye.
Bye.
Nawal, whenever you're ready.
Awesome, thank you. This piece is called Unseen. Verily, with every hardship comes ease, and I can't wait for the hardship to cease. As I raise my head to find you in the sky, I seek to see something I know I can't find. I seek to see you. I seek to see you holding my hand, telling me it's alright, making me a game plan to win this long fight. I seek to see your love. During these times so rough, I seek to see you. I'm powerless, yearning for some change, a little twist to this life so strange. I must go with the clock that's been set. Run, the deadlines must be met, but I don't know the dates. Just gotta go with my fate. An unseen reality I must live in. To the trust and the hope I must give in. But all I feel is confusion, living in some illusion. As despair fills in, I feel so much pain. Clouds hide the sunshine, I'm drenched in the rain. How do I put my trust in his plans, my love in his hands? How do I put my trust in his plans, my love in his hands? My faith in his verses build a fear of his curses. How do I know? How do I know that he's there when I'm low? That his tests were made for me to grow? Why is there so much left unknown? I need answers to my questions, I need them now. You say you're here somewhere near, but how? Where could you be? Why can't I see? I can't seem to see you no matter how high I go. But your promise tells me you're there, just somehow I know. I hear your voice whisper in my heart. To put trust in your plan, play my part. A plan I know nothing of. Trust that is filled with love. Some sights are simply felt rather than seen. I feel your shoulder on which I can lean. I feel your love, I feel it near. I feel you soothe my constant fear. And soon, my desire to see you starts to disappear, and my trust in you becomes clear. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Noel. We will now open up the floor for question and answer from the judges.
Okay.
Hey, Nawal, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I thought this was an absolutely beautiful poem.
Thank you.
My favorite moment was in the middle where you were repeating these questions in that feeling of kind of looking around and being lost. I was really with you there. And so I wanted to ask too, is that something was that what you were going for? Like how else did you capture that feeling of just kind of being almost like being blind, I guess, or being lost, How else did you capture that? How else would you say you captured that?
I think that definitely in the piece, like I was trying to go like I tried to change my tones a lot, so it was kind of like going from like fast to slow and all that. And so it's kind of like how when you're in that state of confusion, you can feel like anger and like distress and sadness and all kinds of emotions, just kind of like that bundle of everything in one. So that's kind of what I was going for, and through like repetition and stuff like I seek to see and just how do I and all that. It's just kind of like building up that severity of the feelings of confusion, like all these questionings that can build up in a person's mind.
I think you did it very well. I mean, since you mentioned the tone, I thought everything felt very controlled. And that moment of looking around, that even the confusion, you even wrote that with control. And I like the way you resolved the poem with those, concrete descriptive images of feeling, whether it's a hand on a shoulder or I don't have the poem right in front of me, but just I do like how you ended up and balancing out that feeling of looking around with that grounded feeling of presence. So I really thought that came through very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for writing.
Alaikum Noel.
Walaikum assalam.
How are you?
I'm doing good, alhamdulillah.
Thank you for your performance. I really enjoyed it. Like Alex said, I echo all of his comments. I liked how, the way you brought, like, it almost felt like you were walking us through it. Like I almost felt like you were holding my hand and you were walking through that confusion, but there's a gentleness to it with your tone. And I think again, what Alex was saying, the feeling of like the confusion, there's almost like this light airiness feeling to it, but then you're grounding it with the words that you're using, and to the end where it's like, even though I can't see you, I feel you near. Like there's almost this lightness. I don't know how to explain it, but that's how I felt. Hearing you perform. And again, like thank you for doing this. Again, given the circumstances, a lot of the competitors today have been bringing their energy, and I just want to say that like we see it, and like I honestly really appreciate it. So thank you for doing that as well. I think I was interested in hearing a bit about the change. I have the poem in front of me. You know, the last towards the end, can't see you in the sky no matter how high I seem to go, and then it changes to, but your promise tells me you're there. Just somehow I know. And I was wondering, you know, like why is that point, and what made like it almost seems very sudden, and I was just curious to hear more about the decision making process and writing it. Yeah.
So I really wanted, one big thing was that I wanted like the whole confusion and everything to be a lot longer than the whole realization, and so that was kind of like an abrupt change because of like the size difference, I guess, in the parts in the poetry. And I think the line right before where it's like, but your promise, and but the promise is referring, like indirectly referring to the Quran and how the Quran can have a lot of answers to our questions. And so by saying can't see you in the sky no matter how high I seem to go is kind of just ending up that like literally you are unseen and I can't see you, and then just converting that to but your promise, which is the Quran, which is what you've given us, which we can literally see and we can use to our benefit. I think I just wanted to like compare and contrast that really abruptly, just to show like the difference and the sort of sudden realization.
So like bring me down. Okay. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Noel, for talking a bit about it, and again, thank you for your performance.
I'm so thankful for that opportunity.
All right, thank you very much, Noel. We will see you on Saturday, August 15th, excuse me, at the award ceremony.
Okay, assalamualaikum.
All right, that was our final performance. So with that, I would like to conclude tonight's session. On behalf of our judges, Fatima and Alex, and the Miss National team, I would like to wish you all a happy and safe evening.